Yes, yes. That's Borderline by Buck Cherry. And you will know who Buck Cherry is because I play another song that's a little bit R-rated before on one of my videos. Not in this family drama. Now I'm trying to clean up a lot in this family drama because I want it's a family. Hey, family means it's gonna be people that shouldn't be here. I don't agree with that statement, by the way. I don't agree that children should be spared of language of any sort. That's just me. I do think that is something maybe shouldn't be spoken about. Not necessarily words and stuff, but some things should be not introduced to children because they have not developed the brain to be able to assess stuff. As we can see with the poem that I read you of uh, Emily Dickinson. No, I'm sorry, not Emily Dickinson. Elizabeth Bishop. You know, in the waiting room, as you can see, a human child. Now, Elizabeth Bishop is a genius, right? So she able to remember when she make that leap from being an ordinary child to being able to relate to the larger world, to everything on planet Earth, right? She recall, and if you remember, if you listen to my videos, you remember that Elizabeth Bishop did that transition between 6 and 7. So that tells us something about human development. Now, I did not know any of this. Raising my kids, I did not know what was what and what, right? I just know that I have 4 little cute girls. They need to learn how to speak English language, human language. They need to go to school. They need to be fed. They need a roof over their head. I didn't know about a whole lot of stuff. So my kids sort of kind of were raised, but the mercy of God, so to speak. But as I get older, I started learning, this is how things supposed to go, right? But anyway, that's what I just don't believe children should be deprived much other than trying to budget it so that you don't confuse your kids because you my thing is I like people to be clear on things, not be too confused. Now, confusion is good because confusion will compel you to think and be able to investigate, and that gives you another set of uh, of a skill set that you needed as a well-rounded adult, well-rounded human. But I believe that should be minimized. Too much confusion is not good. Too much uncertainty is not good. Like I said before, too much of a good thing is bad, and too much of a bad thing is also bad. But anyway, out of the way, this is Monica, your friend Monica. Happy Monday, another day, and we will be talking about family drama today. Now, before we speak about the family drama, I typically want to say what's happened in the world. Okay? I'm just gonna not dwell too much on it because I just take too much of my time. The world is white supremacy ran, white degenerate, the white supremacy house running it, right? So it's not gonna be pretty. There's trying to overthrow countries, destroy them. Iran is the one on the chopping block, trying to destroy Cuba, trying to starve those people in this island. That's still going on. Somehow something is happening with Venezuela. What now is run by white supremacists. So not much is pretty. Nothing that I personally think is worth my respect, is admiration, is going on. None, zero. I'm not saying that cannot happen. When it do happen, I'll report it here. I'll tell you what I'm excited about. But right now, there's not much that I'm personally impressed with. Palestinian people still exterminated in occupied Palestine, also known as apartheid Israel. So I don't know why y'all be watching out there. I'm not watching Fox News. I don't care. I already know what that is. White degeneracy, and I'm not gonna act into the fire. I'm not gonna engage to that, right? I don't watch any mainstream press. I don't care. No problem. My husband put a WGN. Occasionally, I look up and I tell you what I find when I look up. So when WGN shows something that catches my attention and my mind, I will report it here. But that's it for today's what's going on planet Earth. Now, today we come back to our family drama. And also, before I go any further about family drama, I want to ask a favor. I don't know if you guys watched my video all the way through. I really recommend you do that if you have the time. I will appreciate it. But I'm sure the people who watch it all the way through, because me, I'm a type of person that read books and I'm patient, and I also listen to what you call a long form, right? But I'm a bit of a nerd. I know that pension stand in US is not the best in the world. So maybe you don't go through all the way to my video. But yesterday I said that I would like some help from you part. Please subscribe to my channel. Please like my videos. Please comment, comment on my videos, okay? I will really appreciate it because I want to keep the channel up. And remember, I already said this is white supremacy tools. I'm a leftist. I can't help it. I'm going to say leftist stuff. Like what I did, all this little spill I just said is a leftist thing. And these degenerate who want to maintain white supremacy on earth into eternity don't like that. So they may delete my charming family drama. And I desperately want to keep this up for posterity. Now, for I'm not gonna lose these videos. I keep them on a file. I put them in an external hard drive. My husband has it safe. It will go there. Okay, that's what that is. Not gonna be lost. But for the rest of the public who may be interested about human life, other than what we've been bombarded with, the human life of Bill Clinton, the human life of Dick Cheney, the human life of all these freaks, you can also know about a different human life called the Augustine human life. And I want that to be on the record. And I want just people to know about our little sphere of the planet. What's going on here? So please, please, please like it. It's not because I want to be famous or anything like that. Because I think that's always a thing. That's not my intent. My intent is I just want to keep this channel up. And I know white supremacists, they find a million things to make an excuse to delete your shit. It's supposed to be freedom of speech, but somehow they managed to make it a special deal for just a special people. And I would like to keep my channels out. So I'm just want to play by the rules. The rule is subscribe to my channel. The rule is like my thing and watch my videos. Okay? Right? Just watch my videos. So that's it. Now, going back to yesterday episode, I spoke a lot of things. I actually started to unravel some of the reason why principal character, also known as Jean, also known like the matriarch of the Augustine family, why would she take such a drastic decision for what led to this play? Why the charming, loving matriarch, right, will do something like this, right? And I give, if you remember, some of the potential reason, maybe she did that. All right? I say, just to refresh your mind, that she had this family in this household, as you see it, that she needed to preserve as is, and he didn't feel like that was happening, and she put quite a bit of effort to intervene in this situation to preserve the family here, and it doesn't seem like it will quite work out that way. I say that about why that some of the things why Monica Davis wife had to be the proverbial police in a household. I say I even talk about how we wind up I say a lot of things, right? Now, if you've been paying attention to my videos, you will see that along the way, it seems that I'm always in conflict somehow with each member of this family, right? Now, logical person is gonna say, hey, Monica, you're the problem because everybody else can be wrong and you be right. And you'll be right to think that way, right? You're the one who have to learn how to learn people's skills. You're the one who need to figure out how to make this Augustine family work for you. You, Monica, are the reason why you the villain. It's not because you're the brownie. It's not nothing else. That's what the problem is. That's what most people logic will say. Now, I have given you a lot of reason to disabuse you of that notion, and if you don't have critical thinking skills, I'll grant you like that may appear that way. But I will have to expand a little farther to convince you, okay, why that's not the case. For one, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to remind you that I've been in this relationship for a long time, all right? It started off, I'm going to give you a date today. It started off on March 11, 2016, right? That's when this romance started officially. Now, before that, it was sort of like a romance in the periphery between me and David, trying to make it, what do you say, initiate it or something, right? It could have happened earlier, but it didn't happen then. But that's just the official thing, okay? And what happened before was a process of 5 years, okay? But it officially started in March 11th. Now, all that time between this date, between March 11, 2016, until when the date that I gave you, which is Lacey graduation day, we didn't really have any problem in this household. We have none. And I was involved, very much involved. And why is it that it was no problem? Well, because if you have not figured that out on your own, I'll help you. It's because I was just a girlfriend, right? I am David Augustine's girlfriend. And my perspective and my inclination, my very strong hurt, is that this girlfriend here, although David and I knew that this girlfriend and boyfriend was the most profound girlfriend relationship I ever been with. As far as I'm concerned, David, even though I have 4 kids, I've been married before. I had another relationship and some other series of other relationships. This is the most profound relationship Monica, 50-year-old woman, ever had, right? So I take this relationship very seriously, right? So that's all I know. David is everything to me. And based on everything that I know about David, which is everything almost, I am the most important relation he ever had. Now, not important the fact that I procreated his children, although we could have, because at this point we would have 4 children, literally. Because my 4 children I have was produced in a period that they've not been together, right? So that's that. So not in that way, right? But in a human, meaningful, profound way, and was the core of me, the individual, the Monica and David, the individual, right? Not what the force of life sort of thing. Okay? So that's one of the reasons. So the family was not concerned. No reason to worry. You know, there's no reason to worry because David has a girlfriend. And to make things even better, not to make any worry for this Augustine family, right, is the fact that David lived in this household with the 2 other people I already mentioned, his daughters, Emily and Lacey, right? And I'm just like sort of like peripheral, right? I just in and out. It's like, right? Because the family constructing this house is my perspective from the way I understand it from this family is that David is the father to these girls, and then the shadow that I have mentioned. So that's really the understanding of this family. Me, no, is something, right? That's more or less. Now, so there was no reason to fight, right? There's no reason to fight because you have to understand one thing about society. This is USA, okay? United States. United Snakes, like I call it, right? Because it's a deviant thing that I'm just trying to, hey, you don't have to agree with me, but I think United States is United Snakes because the snakes are sneaky, okay? So this society is work on what we call capital relations. And the capital relation has everything to do with the family. The family is an institution, right? That's just, I'm going to put it that way. And that may not be talked about as much, but it's understood, all right? So, whereas me and my husband, we concentrate in our lives, other members of this family, they concentrate on the family as it should operate on capital relations in United States, right? So that's the thing, right? I just want to point that out. And since that's the case, they will not concentrate in our lives, and their mind is on capital relations. You can see what that will transpire. A bit of an, not a big one, but small issue, right? If you don't agree with me, I don't know. Think about it. So, there's not a problem. But there was not a problem before. But the problem definitely started presenting itself. Now, When I, if you remember when I told you about that day that me, my husband, also known as a villain supporter, David, Emily, and Lacey, also known as David's daughters, went on the principal character house, and I told you that's the first day, the first time I knew that, hey, something changed here. It's like an inflection point, right? And I say I saw the transformation for her, for the mere suggestion that David and I can potentially move to Colorado, right? I say that in here. When that happened, some of the things which I won't communicate here will also communicate that day, right? Were asked of me. And if you remember, I told you that when David asked me for this beautiful marriage, which frankly, by the time we got married, we were already married, okay? In my heart. And to David's heart too, because David was not making any decision of sir without consulting me, his long-term girlfriend. Alright? So, hey, I give David my schedule and he scheduled things based on my schedule, right? And David know if he does things that I'm on the loop, that will cause problem in a relationship. And he never did that. He always respect me and right. So that's that. But anyway, that day, so anyway, I told you when David told me this, I say, and I always respect my husband's request. I went home. I went and where I was living with my youngest daughter, Isabella, right? That's another name you can pick up. My youngest daughter, her name is Isabella. She was staying with me. And I said, hey, Izzy. Now, before this happened, I will have to say that I've been I didn't know for sure that we were eventually get married and I had to move anything. I didn't know. Because when it comes to this thing, it was always, okay, next year. And I keep renewing the lease and always, like, not that I talked that with David, but I'm always like, sort of like, I kind of knew because I knew that how long can David kind of wait to be with his girlfriend and be married ever after? It wasn't gonna be forever. So I kind of knew because I used my human brain. I knew that will happen eventually. So I was just like, I was trying to tell Isabella before that, hey, Izzy, you should kind of stop being mature. Stop doing all the crazy stuff that you do. You need to concentrate, work, save your money, stay in school, do all the right thing. And she was just doing everything that she should have been doing, craziness. And I won't bore you with the details. My mom was also getting frustrated with that situation. I think my brother too. But anyway, she was just not behaving the right way. And because I knew that, I can't keep living like that, right? Like eventually I have to live in the same roof with David, and eventually he's gonna be my husband. So I knew that. So when it was done, I told Izzy, which she was not thrilled about it. She was not happy about it. But she warmed up to the idea. And at first I had to convince one of her sister to also accept because she kind of knew how she is and then she didn't know. But she too warmed up to the idea and it all kind of worked out. Right? Now you will ask, if you're logical, you will ask, hey, Monica, okay, fine, I understand that you are gonna be moving in with David and Lacey and Emily, and but then Isabella gonna be moving in with her sister. Well, why would you burden her sister? Why did not um Isabella come with you and move in with them? Because hey, these are girls, and Isabella is also a girl, and that should be all just be a happy family, right? And then wouldn't be all this other stuff. Well, you will ask some question like that, and I would say, you're right, but no, that was not even a consideration. And why? And if you say, well, why would that not be a consideration? It's for multiple reasons, but the chief one, if you already watched my other videos, I forgot what episode. I think in episode 6, I mentioned that, you know, why this marriage did not start years ago and it started now. Because I knew they just we can be doing a lot of interruption, right? That's the thing. And at first, even though my husband asked me, hey, it's time for us to do this, and I was like, sure. But then, but even though I have my reservation, because by that point I have known everything I need to know about these two, and I just knew that these are some of the most fragile humans I ever known in my whole entire life. And God knows, I have known a whole lot of people, in fact, in multiple continents, and this is something different. And I was like, but what happened is that if you remember, I didn't say no to my husband. But when we went to that trip in Disney World, it solidified the thing without me having to be, be like that. So everybody understood that that's something that was discussed between me and my husband. But we kind of understood, hey, this is not a thing, right? And remember, my children, even though, don't get me wrong, they've been interacting with these girls before, they adore them, really. And if people think I'm lying, I can show evidence, right, that my children were luring these girls, all right, my children, because that's how my kids are. My kids are open-minded, are caring, are loving, but maybe that's how it is when you are biracial, multiracial families. We just open to the planet Earth. But not so much these two. But nevertheless, they scare the girls. So I knew if I say, hey Izzy, you moving us over here, he was like, absolutely not. Right? That's what I knew for a fact. So that would solidify that understanding. Now, going back to this whole situation, all right? Why the principal character, the mother of my husband, the matriarch of this family, why would she exclude the Bronny, the villain, the Bronny, David's wife, from her hospital room, right? Why would she do that? I gave some of that yesterday. But I want to spend a little bit more about that, because that was not all. When that happened, right? First of all, let me say, after we left that when we were in the house, principal character house, and we knew about this family thing that David need to adhere to, not contemplating going anywhere like Colorado. Something was communicated to other members of this family, of the Augustine family. And the members of the Augustine family has been mentioned in this play. Not all of them, but the principal ones, okay? So they have been mentioned here. Now, that's fine. No problem. I expect that. That's what a matriarch is supposed to do. Hey, minor character, this is what's happening with the family over there, Augustine family household. Hopefully, you will put your 2 cents to make sure if we can preserve those family. All right, that was done. That's for a fact. All right, I know for a fact. Now, not because somebody told me, but only because I use my human brain to think. All right, so that was done. And to use my human brain to think because an event that took place. Okay, event has to take place, and then my human brain comes in how that could happen. All right, so that's one. Anyway, no problem. We already have that event. It happened. We did the going to the aunt, right? My husband aunt's house. The whole thing that I spoke to you, and then the intervention that took place in our home here, and even all of that had happened. Then another day, the principal character came here, okay, in this household, to pick up her little princess, her Emily and Lacey's. She came in this house. That day, Henry was not around. I don't know where Henry was, but it seemed like Henry sometime somewhere else where the principal character is not. Remember who's Henry? The principal character, or common-law husband. But she was by herself. She picked up the 2 girls to pick up those girls. Now, when she was in this house, she said something else. Now, this is after our marriage. Now I am Monica Augustine. I'm no longer the name that I had before, okay? I'm Monica Augustine. And she said, okay, let me just bookmark this for a little bit. Just because I want to say something else that took place before the marriage. So when that happened, when after we left the house in that day, where she said whatever she to preserve, I don't know about Colorado thing. We one day, couple days later or something, my husband and I, we were going to a rock concert, right? And we got a call. This time, we got a call from the married character, also known as Tom. And she was talking to my husband. I don't remember him saying, congratulations, you would be getting married, or anything like that. He said he heard that he's going to get married. And he trying to tell my husband that my husband should consider going to some lawyer, writing down something on paper, some stamps need to be worked, something like that, in relation before this marriage take place. That's what he told my husband. Now, I was like, this is absurd, ridiculous. I was trying to tell my husband, like, these people are inappropriate. This is not correct. This is not how black people behave. Let's put it that way. Remember, I read you The Death and Life of My Father, Donald H. Kelly. That was a black family. And I want to add, if you remember that episode that I read you, that episode said, that black family, that's as middle class black family as you can get. In fact, Dr. Robin Kelly, he is renowned thinker, a man of letters, a professor, and you see he's an international intellectual. So that is, and you remember the ordeal, kidnapping, guns, stuff, but as black family, right? Now, I just want to see how black family, multiple marriages, shit like that. That's how black folks, we operate. You can say, hey, that's why black folks have problems they have. True, but that there's also that's how really human beings behave, okay? And not abstraction, money, capital thing too, okay? That's just when I said that. Now you can say, well, the capital, money, abstraction is better than that, and I can tell you, no. Okay, now, when my husband got a call, I was not impressed with my husband, because for my husband, I didn't tell him anything. I was just like, when he did that, I feel like it was another offense to my husband. And I really want to ask my husband, hey, tell him bye. No, we busy, okay? Because I'm like, listen, if you are not joyful, jumping up and down, breakdancing, because David about to get married, there's no conversation to be having at this point. All right? So that's that. Now, that's the man of character. That's how that works. David told him on that call that, hey, made my decision. This is what I want. This is it. And that was it, right? That was just it. So that was fun. And credit to minor character also not dumb. He really have not made much of a fuss or have acted any stranger after that. So that's why the performance that we had on Christmas Day was a bit off place for me. Okay. No, because before that, I already mentioned some other episode, one of his performance that I was also let down with, right? So that's the capital relation situation. But anyway, I won't go into it. If you want it, you can go watch the episode 1, I think. Episode 1, okay? Because that was just, I will consider this not hurt but annoyed, right? So it's on the episode 1 when I was off. So, but anyway, more or less, he have comport himself the way I hope to expect from my fellow family members here. So that's that, okay? So that's one data point where the minor character was communicated. This is the minor character trying to intervene somehow in this situation. Now, after that happened, that day that principal character came here to pick up the girls, she said some of the things. She said something. She was like, hey, David, I think my husband was talking about something. I don't know what that was, and my memory cannot bring it to flow. But I do know that she was like, hey, David, the thing is, you're married, because if you're not married, you could do something. Right? Something in relation to the shadow in this house. And then at the time, I was like, uh, no, because the shadow, I told her some facts about the shadow, right? Like, remember the shadow, um, you know? And then, just like when somebody come at you and says something that seem that you, I'm not saying you offended, you're not offended, but it feel like it deserves your reaction at a minimum, right? So it's not like you offended or you are annoyed or anything like that, because it doesn't. It's not how it is. It's just like they said something that's just out of the boundaries of what you live under, right? Something like that. I don't know how to articulate this. Like I say, I'm not very good at speaker, but they just said something that seemed like it's not within your paradigm, so to speak, right? But because everybody have their own perspective, so when she said that, I reminded her like, hey, remember the shadow is not, some facts about the shadow. And then she and then after that, Dave and I, we got into the conversation about it. But then I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, we actually out of line ourselves, because it doesn't really matter, the shadow. The shadow is absolutely irrelevant in this marriage, in this household, on David's, non zero, nada, gone, right? This should not be, it does not matter anything about the shadow. That should not be concerned, right? That's just not, because don't matter. Hey, don't matter some more, right? That's basically what I say. When that happened, some other thing was provoked, right? With other members of this family. Now, the principal character, she was not rude, she was not mean, she does nothing. But the principal character, she's the one who ran this household. Not this household per se, but this whole family, because she's the matriarch. And I think that manifests elsewhere, because that interaction that I described in this household, right? I personally suspect that interaction has something else to do, right? All right, so what happened? So then, remember I told you about the aunt, my husband aunt? She booked another family reunion. We went to the family reunion. That's the day that I discovered we can no longer, because that was the second family reunion that we will not be doing, because she says she's getting old, and and we haven't gotten no invitation, so it seems like it's true. Um, um, Something else happened that day. We were at the family house party, my husband and house. And then Christine, also known as Pound Attorney, was there. And she started to discuss things about the shadow and that thing. At first, I wanted to reason with her, hey, we shouldn't be, I don't know if I thought we should be talking about that. But it seems like her thing is not so much about the shadow. Her concern is the girls, right? That's what her concern is. These girls, they just need to be attended to, something just these girls is not. And then the shadow thing, I'm like, hey, let's not talk about the shadow. It's not important, not right. Then something about David and the shadow, and I was told that I don't know the history, and I was like, okay. And then something to the fact, I was like, well, I understand, but that's not David's fault. Now the minor character that is, he was charming and funny. He was like, yes, he has his fault. I was like, no, he's not. Anyway, that's beside the point. I thought that was funny. He said that's David's fault. I said, no, it's not David's fault. And it got almost heated. Right? I got almost heated. She was not happy because I said, hey, no, let's not talk about the shadow. And then she said, well, I know it's not David's fault, but it's not the girl's fault either. And I'm like, okay, I understand. But if you don't want to talk about the shadow or anything in relation with the shadow, you better go talk to them about it and not me trying to enjoy this party and my husband. That's what I say. Well, she got annoyed. She got upset about that. But I also noticed something about another member of this family, and that's that is Henry, the principal character, also known as Jean, common-law husband. He was not very much in the table where we were. Okay, he was not there. He was in a basement, far away from me as possible. And anyway, so my husband and I, no problem. I'm over there partying, maybe complaining a little bit because I'm like, these people and the shadow and this whole thing, it's just kind of like annoying, frustrated. And I'm like, why cannot we just be in a same camp here and work this out, and we don't have to make it unnecessary, complicated? But that's not the case. It just had to be like that. But anyway, we were just there, and then Jean noticed that, hey, look like the Brownie and her husband, my son David, also known as the villain supporter, over there. He said, hey, why don't we all go downstairs in the basement? So that's when we went to the basement and joined the rest of the family. And that's why I saw Henry and everything else. So that solidified why would Christine, also known as power attorney, will have extra incentive to force without trying to be slightly, I'm not saying polite, but trying to win me over to accept that, hey, Monica, let's not, I understand this may not feel right. You may not be happy that you can't go to the ICU unit where the principal character is, also known as Jean, Augustine, the matriarch of this family. But give me a chance here, especially tight rope or something that she should have done to avoid the conflict. That's what I say. But I'm just giving you a data point because that's one of the issues that she may be feeling some kind of way. Like we was like black folks, we would say it would make her be on her feelings, so to speak, right? That's one point. But I also remember I told you on Christmas Day, she did not join with me to say, hey, minor character Tom, I understand that what you're saying, but that's inappropriate things to say. I know we all white folk here, but we should not be equating migrant and crime because, hello, that's racist. And I understand that Monica may have get a proclivity, but she's right. Instead, what she did, how dare you insulting my brother? And I'm like, okay, what is going on here? And Henry, instead of saying, that's right, Monica, that's right, Tom, we should be respecting not me, the Bronny, but we should not be saying that. We should not be thinking of people of color as criminals because that's not right. Because there's criminals, white folks, and we're not going to say, hey, because there's criminal white folks, we couldn't be going to Austria for vacation. All right? That's why. So they all gang on me, and they did not consider learning any lessons. White folks are some of the most stubborn people I know. They refuse to learn because they feel like they don't have to, because they're white supremacists and they have power and they have nothing to learn and they're just going to impose themselves however they see fit. All right? So that's why. Right. Now, going back to this principal character here. Now, remember, I have been discussing about her pound attorney's papers. I've been discussing about her grocery bag. Alright? That grocery bag been discussed a lot on display because I feel like that grocery bag was in a charming way doing a lot of elucidation about the character of the principal character. Okay? Because, like I say, there's a million bags that could have been putting stuff in to take to the ICU at the hospital, but that was not done. That specific bag was taken to the hospital. And I, being the leftist that I am, I picked that up. Now, I will bring us a little bit another setting, okay? Why would I think that, hey, this grocery bag may be a little message? Now, I don't think she did it consciously because she wants to provoke, or however you say this, evoke or infer anything by this. I just think that's just it. That's bad. First of all, she bought it somehow. I can't find. Please, if you know where I can buy this bag, I'll be happy to buy it so I can have it on my safe thing where my husband keep out most precious items. When she took this bag, it brings me back to another potential data point that could make this lovely, charming grandmother, mother, the matriarch of the Augustine family. When we went to Colorado, the family vacation, if you recall, I have mentioned that we was gonna go to family vacation in Colorado, which we did, and I enjoyed it so much, right? Something else happened there, okay? Something else. Now, it may not be too significant with this family, but it's significant to me, okay? All right, what happened? One day, like I say, I go on Twitter, I read newspapers, not necessarily the mainstream, although I read them too, because I actually can read the mainstream because I know how to read it. I know how to read it. I know who the audience they expect to communicate, which doesn't include me, which I already, if you watch on other my videos, I tell you who's the audience for the mainstream press. It's not literally for somebody like me. They do not care. It is that person like the principal character, okay? Now, I'm not gonna say that the principal character is exactly, she fit this criteria, but pretty close, okay? And based on the studies, right, that have been done, not by me, by the white supremacists who ruled this world, the readers, for example, of the New York Times are typically white folks who live in 2.3 million house. That's it, all right? Those are the ones who reads it, the New York Times. Now, white supremacists do raggedy ass shit, okay? Let's just put it that way. They do raggedy ass shit. Now, to justify to these 2.5 million dewalders, right? They need to write shit down to make them feel that, hey, it's not that bad. Hey, you should keep attached to the shit. You need to make sure you register and go to the polls on whatever given day to keep the shit going, right? Because according to this United States, right, it's supposed to derive the power from the government, okay? So I just want to make sure we understand that, right? They're supposed to derive their power from the governed. And according to this logic, the governed in this bitch, right, supposed to be those people, which are a fraction of the population in this bitch, right? So that's why they do that. So because I know that, when I read the New York Times, when I read the Washington Post, when I watch whatever, I know that's what's going on, okay? So I can be fooled. That's why I call myself a leftist. So when we were in that vacation, okay, I was watching alternative news. I was watching Lake Maruf, Free Palestine TV. Alright, it's on YouTube. You can go to Free Palestine TV. And I was watching. And Laith was doing a report somewhere in Lebanon where white supremacists have destroyed an ancient cemetery, Jewish cemetery, may I add. Alright, that's what Israel's. Now we're supposed to believe this is supposed to be Jewish state. And they're supposed to be about Jews left and right. But it turns out they destroyed in Lebanon an ancient Jewish cemetery, which is supposed to be a tradition for human race, because we shouldn't be destroying archaeological places, or we shouldn't be destroying it, antiquity stuff, just for our posterity, for the human enrichment and human experience, right? I'm all for that stuff, right? I'm all for preserving all things related to human being who have ever born, live, and die. I'm for that, okay? That's just me, Monica, the human, okay? Now, when that happened, my principal character, also known as Jean, also known as the matriarch of the Augustine family, she saw that. And she was like, hey, Monica, yeah, that's terrible. But Monica, why did now I'm thinking that she's gonna be disturbed or all the destruction. Why does it the white supremacists are doing all this? This is not right. White supremacists, y'all need to stop acting this way and behave more civilized. That was my expectation of her reaction. Well, it's not that. That seems like that didn't even bother her. What did concern her. It's what the New York Times says, or whatever newspaper that she read before that day. She was concerned why um, um, the hostages, why did they talk to hostages? And she was also concerned about why did they went to the it was a festival, right? There was the rave festival, and there's those were her very concern, right? Those were her thing. Now, at first, because I'm a leftist, now when it comes to being a leftist at this point, when you talk to a regular person, you have to understand these are not mean people. These are just U.S. Let me call them citizens. Okay, these are U.S. citizens. Okay, so they're U.S. citizen. This is a normal, run-of-the-mill U.S. citizen. Not only the U.S. citizen, they are the most appreciated, treasured human U.S. citizen. Okay, my husband's family is the most careful. That's the one. That's the citizen, the the perfect citizen. Okay, that's the most desirable. Okay, the most careful, the most to the extent that this country cares. That's it. So when you talk to somebody like me, when I'm talking something like that, sometimes I forget, and you forgive me, cause I'm just human. I forget that hey, Monica, you have to forget about leftist shit, right? Just go back to planet Earth on US where you are and behave and trying to behave accordingly. If you listen to a lot of leftists, that's one of the complaints they have for leftists, that we don't know how to comport with regular people. Because the truth is, the majority of people, including working class people, poor people, any demographic, that's it. This is it. Okay? This is the culture, right? And us are alien, more or less. Okay? So, but at the same time, we not alien, we human, and we do make mistakes. And one of the mistakes that a lot of leftists we have is that we don't slow down and say, oh, okay, I get it. So the hostages, that's the bad thing. That's what happened that is bad. They took hostages from the apartheid state and took them to the Gaza Strip. Okay, that's what it was about, right? That was a bad thing. And the other bad thing happened is she didn't say Palestinian, he said the terrorists or something like that. Terrorists. The terrorists went to this festival and they committed heinous crimes at the hospital, at the festival. You shouldn't be committing heinous crime at the festival. People enjoying themselves, partying, festival, concert. Those are of the. You shouldn't be doing that. That's not cool, right? That was her concern. All right. Well, you had to understand this is at the peak of genocide in Palestine. I'm a leftist. I am horrified by everything I've been watching. And like I said in my other videos, I refuse to look away. I am really can't believe, even for me, this blow the widest imagination. I don't know anything comparable to this level of barbarism. So I am filled with dismay, rage, confused, you name it. So I'm having this interaction with my husband's mother, the charming lady I've been knowing for many years. And we really are doing what we're supposed to be doing, talking about stuff. And at first I'm like, hostages? Are you talking about the concentration camp that was Gaza Strip? Are you talking about the thousands of Palestinian people how are treated like farm pigs? I had no clue, right? I literally was frozen. So I'm thinking that can't. Are you talking about those hostages? I and then I discovered none of that. That was not a hostage she was worrying about. She literally worrying about the worst waste of my space I can think about. You talking about people who are the job is to making sure the Palestinian they keep us farm as the pigs in the farm can't get out. Those people, right? Those are the hostages, and I cannot care less, right? So I was like, hey, I don't know about the hostages you're talking about. It's those Palestinians, first I know. Only hostages that we have in this whole scenario is the Palestinian people who just stole the land and they are exterminated as we speak, right? So that was the first thing. But then I was a bit heated. Not so much with her, okay? Not really. She's an innocent woman. She read this through this stenographer colonial press, right? This propagandistic capitalist garbage, the rags. She just informed herself. She did the reading. She did understood the story, right? That's what she did. She's the correct citizen. That's what citizens are supposed to do. You're supposed to inform yourself so you can be well equipped citizenry, okay? All right. So I was like, I should have comport myself, like say calmly, say, hey, Jean, I understand you're concerned, but you should be concerned about that because that's really not right. So, those you shouldn't be worrying about those type of people. Those are not good people. Those are slaveholders. Like, forget about them. That's not another whole. You should ask your government here in U.S. to stop the genocide, release Palestinian hostages. By the way, that's part of the reason that October 7th was about, because the Palestinian people wanted the million of women, children, men they keep hostages in occupied Palestine calling apartheid Israel. So that was one of the things. They wanted to release the people from these dungeons they have them in. That's one of the reasons. So I could have said those terms, maybe we would have come to some sort of understanding. I don't think I'm capable to accomplish something so magnificent, so difficult, but maybe, I don't know. So that's when I was defensive. I was like, nope, I can care less about those hostages. Those are slaveholders, waste of space and stuff. So I was just like, no, those are not hostages. I can even contemplate watching all the shit they're doing, destroying everything, and they are living human beings on planet Earth with no memory of what happened to this little place that had an ancient Jewish cemetery that these supposedly Jews supposed to be, preserving, but it turns out they only want to have some shit that's not related to this ancient Jewish cemetery in the occupied Palestine or in Lebanon at this point, in the Levant, right? So that another thing. Now, the other part that she mentioned about the festival, that was another thing. And now I'm starting to say, okay, all right, now this festival thing. So we were on a table. We about to eat lunch, okay. I was still thinking about it. What principal character, also known Jean, also known my husband, mother, also known the matriarch of this family, the Augustine family, right? Now, after to this point, I refer her as a principal character. But you can also know that this charming white woman is my mother-in-law. That's my husband's mother. Now I'm thinking like, okay, why will my mother-in-law, why would they make her think that these Palestinian terrorists will want to go to the festival and kill innocent partygoers, right? Now, we know a lot of that was a bunch of lies. And we know based on real reporting that a lot of people who died from that festival had nothing to do with the Palestinian armed resistance. It has everything to do with Israel and the IOF, Israeli occupation forces, because they have a doctrine, all right? The Hanadan doctrine, where if they think that the Palestinians would pick up some of the people to take them as hostages, they will kill their own people, right? So they did a lot of that day. You can go in electronic intifada. You can go to the gray zone. You can go to people who are actually interested on truth to know that was the case, right? But I'm not going to bore my mother-in-law, the principal character, also known as Jean, with this stuff because it just seemed like, well, actually, I could, but I was stopped, right? I was stopped by the minor characters. Say, hey, this is a family. We're about to eat lunch. We shouldn't be talking about politics, right? But I respected that request. But, like I said, if you notice my behavior, I'm a type of person where I feel ostracized somehow, or I feel like I've been wrong somehow, or, right? I do what a disabled child who is forced to go to the short bus instead of going to the regular bus with everybody else do. She felt bad about shit and she complained just a little bit. So I said, first of all, I don't know about this festival, but my thing is this. If you are having festival next to a concentration camp, whatever happened to you there, not my problem. That's your problem. Alright? That's what I say that day. Alright? Simple stuff. Now, after that conversation took place and everything, nothing else would happen in this family vacation. Family vacation for the whole time was perfect, right? But that's just only interaction that I could recall took place that day. So then now, when we are going to the family, we went to the hospital. I'm watching this bag. I'm watching this bag, right? That I told you on my Facebook yesterday. Hey, we're going to explore. Why did this bag wind up at the hospital? Why did other bags were not considered? Why the Salvation Army bag was not there? Why did the Target bag was not there? Why did the Infinity Guard was not there? Why did the Beautiful Flowers bag was not there? Right? Why, you understand? Why did the Republican Party, the GOP bag was not there? Right? Why is this other, I don't know, right? I just saying that I saw the bag that say the land of the free, the home of the brave, blue bag with American symbol. So that brought me back to that memory, right? Because now I'm not saying maybe that's quite yet, but all I'm saying is at this point the family is well acquainted with me. I'm no longer this ethereal, mythical girlfriend of David that Maybe it's a girlfriend, maybe it's not. I am the real deal in this life, in this Augustine. And this situation is like we can really stop or change it, but we have to address it because it simply don't seem like it fit quite yet. All right. So when I say I had to interrogate this bag, that's what I meant. Okay. That's what I meant about it. It may be that I'm completely off mark here, and I take that as such. But I do think that is a thing. Okay. I do think that it's a potential, right? Because it did happen. Okay. It did happen. So for now, in this family drama, I will leave it at that for now. I think I gave you a lot about this family drama and how everything unfolds in this family drama. For now, let me see what time is it. I'm going to now pick up Dr. Parenti. And please, if this is all you want to know about the drama, make sure you do like my videos, share my video, talk about this beautiful family, and see if we can make this work. Okay? Now, yesterday we started a chapter. We started the chapter 6 of the Black Shirts and Reds, the rationalized fascism and overthrow of communism. We started on the first paragraph, which Dr. Parenti labeled as the free market paradise goes east, right? All right. Now, that very short paragraph, if you recall, I did say that I'm going to pontificate on that paragraph, but I think that it's really not much for me to pontificate, right? You already know if a country is going to have quote unquote free market in the land, shit's gonna go down. It's gonna be the human beings on that land are gonna suffer, and they're gonna suffer horribly. Why we know that? Because we have the numbers now. It's been allowed. We read Open Veins to Latin America, and we know how the free market works in all these Latin Americas. We read the neoliberal Holocaust, right? And we already know, and that's literally what this is. This is the neoliberal Holocaust, where literally 17 million Eastern European white folks were wiped out from Earth, and they're still suffering as we speak. All right? So now we're just going to pick up the next paragraph, which is the suppression of the left. Okay? That's why I am a left, so you know I want to know how I'm being suppressed. Let's start. The anti-communists who took power in Eastern Europe and Soviet Union in 1989 to 1991 set about to impose bourgeoisie dominance over political and cultural life, purging communists from government, the media, the university, professors, and courts. While presenting themselves as democratic reformers, they soon grew impatient with the way democratic forms of popular resistance limited their efforts to install and understanding free market capitalism. In Russia, associates of President Boris Yeltsin talk of the quote-unquote dangers of democracy and complained that, quote, most representative bodies have become a hindrance to our free market reforms, close quote. I don't know if you picked that up, but if you notice, white colonizers do not like democracy. We hear too much about democracy, but you have to understand, if you talk to average white folk, they will say, this is not a democracy body, this is a republic, right? All right, that's cool, but this is a republic. When people, other countries are trying to do something, right, where they like no voting or whatever, then they start bitching, then they start saying they need to have democracy in those places. However, with the fastest degenerates we have and the um and the white supremacy house right now, they don't even want to bother with the facades. They just want the whole thing. We steal your shit. It's our shit because we are the white folks. We have the guns. If you don't give it to us, we'll take it by any means necessary. That's where they are. They don't even bother consent of the people on the spot. People, if they want it or not, if they want to be slave or not, they're not even given a choice. Do you want to be slave or you don't want to be? No, no. We say, I, the orange degenerate, the garbage that came from Germany, I'm the ruler of this planet. I say everything belongs to us, the United States, the land we stole, and if you don't give it to us, we'll take it anyway. Okay? That's how it goes. But anyway, let's go. Apparently, the free market say that by, quote, reformers to be very foundational of political democracy could not be introduced through democratic means. In 1992, the president of Poland, Yugoslavia, and Russia demanded that their parliaments be suspended and they be allowed to rule by presidential decree with repressive measures against, quote, hardliners, close quote, and holdovers, close quote, who resisted the free market, quote unquote, reform. The goal was not power to the people, but profits to the privileged. The process of democratization via the suppression began even before the actual overthrow of communism. In 1991, the Soviet president Mikhail Gorbachev, prodded by Russia President Yeltsin, announced that the Communist Party of the USSR no longer had legal status. The party membership the party membership funds and buildings were confiscated. Workers prohibited from engaging in any kinds of political activity in workplace. 6 leftist newspapers were suppressed while all other publications, many of them openly reactionary, enjoyed uninterrupted distribution. The U.S. media, even many on the left of the U.S. left, hailed these acts of suppression as moving ahead with the democratic reform, close quote. Gorbachev then demanded that the Soviet Congress abolish itself. It had remained too resistant to change. Actually, the Congress was not opposed to the democratic debate and multiple party election. These were all really in practice it resisted an unbridled free market capitalism, and for that reason will have to go. Gorbachev repeatedly cut off the microphones during the debates and threatened single-handedly to abolish the Congress by emerging decree. He forced it for 3 times until he got the desired abolition. These strong-arm methods were reported in the U.S. press without critical comment. What gave Yeltsin and Gorbachev the excuse to pursue this repressive course was the curious incident of August 1991, when the nervous group of leaders mounting vague phrases about the deterioration of life in the Soviet Union attempted an oddly orchestrated quote-unquote coup against the Gorbachev government, one that flopped before it ever took off the ground. Weeks later, the Washington Post in September 26, 1999, noted happily that the defeat of the coup was a triumph for the Soviet moderate class. Among the coup militant opponents were private and entrepreneur and thousands of members of the Russian stock exchange who routinely make 20 times the average wage of ordinary Soviet. They headed into quote-unquote the streets of the Moscow to defend their right to heal or to wheel and deal. The coup collapses democratic triumph, private businesses, and contributed more than 15 million rolls to buy food and equipment for the defendants, close quote. One broker was struck by how few workers responded to Yeltsin's call to defend democracy. The bonus of this investor class in the face of armed coup might have another explanation. A socialist critic of communism, Boris Karalisti, argues, quote, in fact, there was no coup at all, close quote. The soldiers were armed and confused. The tanks call out were undirected, quote, and the leaders of the so-called coup never even seriously tried to take power, close quote. The real coup was catastrophically came in the aftermath when Boris Yeltsin used the incident to exceed his constitutional powers and dismantle the Soviet Union itself, absorbing all his power into his own Russia Republic. While claiming to undoing the old regime, close quote, Yeltsin overthrew the new democratic Soviet government in 1989 to 1991. Alright? This is so upsetting. I am so full of rage reading all of this. The fall of the Soviet Union was a fucking blow to billions of human beings of this world. That's why we in the shithole we are today. Now, I do think like these white degenerates, these worthless, anti-human, disgusting people are overplaying their hand, and it doesn't matter. They are going down. Now, when we say going down, it doesn't seem like, oop, tomorrow they're going down. But in 100 years' time, these degenerates will not be here. And by that, I mean that they would not have any power to tell any human on planet Earth what to do. But let's keep going. In the late 1993, facing strong popular resistance to his harsh free market policy, Yeltsin went further. He forcibly dismantled the Russian parliament and every other elected representative body in the country, including municipal and regional councils. He abolished Russia's Constitutional Court and launched an armed attack upon the parliamentary building, killing an estimated 2,000 resistors in demonstration. Thousands more were jailed without charge or trial, and hundreds of elected officials were placed under investigation. Yeltsin banned labor unions from all political activities, suppressed dozens of publications, exercised monopoly control over all broadcast media, and permanently outlawed 15 political parties. He unilaterally scrapped the constitution constitution and presented the public with a new one that gave the president nearly absolute power over the policy while reducing the democratic elected parliament to virtually impotent. You see why 17 million Eastern Europeans were wiped off? This is it. Let's keep going. For this crime, he was held as defender of democracy by U.S. leaders in media. And then people like, hey, Monica, why are you calling white folks degenerates? Why would you do that? Don't you think, in the words of Henry, that you are racist? Fuck no. Alright? I should be calling them something worse. And I just can't have vocabulary words to describe these absolutely demonic, barbaric garbage. Okay? Because the shit they do to people on earth is unconscionable. But let's keep going. What they're most liked about Yeltsin was that he, quote, never wavered in his support for privatization, close quote. Yeltsin, the quote-unquote Democrat, twice suspending publication of the Communist Party paper of Pravda. He charged an exorbitant rent for the use of his own facility. Then, in March 1992, he confiscated the paper's 12-story building and pressed and turned full ownership over to the Groceries Bag, a government pro-Yeltsin newspaper. Yeltsin, quote, the elite, Oman troop repeatedly attacked leftist demonstrations and pickets in Moscow and other Russian cities. Parliamentary Deputy Andrei Alzerasi, an independent, and Deputy Valentin Martin Yano, a communist who both vigorously opposed the Yeltsin government, were victims of political assassination. In 1994, journalist Dmitry Kolova, who was probing corruption in high places, also was assassinated. In 1996, Yeltsin won re-election as president, beating out its serious challenges from a communist rival. His campaign was assisted by teams of U.S. electoral advisors who used sophisticated polling techniques and focus groups. Yeltsin also benefited from multi-million dollar donation from U.S. sources and a $10 billion aid package from the Multinational Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Important for victory was crooked counting of ballots. As Cursley reported in one ABC late evening news story in July 1996. I don't know if you pay attention to some of the names I just said, but they are degenerate evils institution the white degenerate used to oppress worse people. How U.S. wound down the Soviet Union? How is U.S. any of their fucking business? Why we don't have health care in this bitch? Why people don't have a living standards? Why Monique Cook still have to die on the streets because she don't have a shelter bag at a shelter, right? But they had $10 billion for this shit. Let's keep going. Yeltsin exercised monopoly control over Russia television network, enjoyed campaign coverage that amounted to non-stop promotorials. In contrast, opposition coordinates were reduced to non-person given only fleeing exposure. If the Yeltsin re-election was hailed in the West as a victory for democracy, in fact, it was a victory for private capital and monopoly media, which is not synonymous with democracy, though often treated as such by U.S. leaders and opinion makers. Yeltsin's commitment is to capitalism, not democracy. In March 1996, several months before the election, when polls showed him training the communist candidate, Gennady Zyuganov, Yeltsin ordered decrees drawn up, quote, that will have canceled the election, closed down parliament, and banned the Communist Party, close quote. This was reported on the New York Times. But he was dissuaded by advisors who feared the measure might incite too much resistance. Though he decided not to call off the election, quote, Yeltsin was never committed to turning over government to the communists if he lost, close quote. Right? Fascists. So these white degenerates is supposedly the freest country on earth, like Jean Grocery Bag tell us, love to see dictatorship, fascism as well, even though they claim this one is also fascist, but nevertheless, it gives us the illusion that it's not, right? So that's why I'm always going to point to this grocery bag that Jean felt like she needed to take to the hospital, because it's just not true. It's not true. This is not the land of the free. All right, just because you, Gene, are free, don't mean the rest of us are free. All of us, a lot of us, we not free. And as long as that's the case, don't be surprised when Monica Augustine said, "Hey, no, it's not true." Let's keep going. During the 1996 campaign, Yeltsin and his associate repeatedly announced that a communist victory will bring, quote, a civil war, close quote. In effect, they were voicing their willingness to discard democracy and resort to force and violence. If the election did not go their way, nor was it taken as an idle threat. At one point, surveys showed that quote, about half of the population believed that the civil war will result if the communists won, close quote. That was reported in the Sacramento Bay in July 9, 1996. Throughout all of this, Johnson received various supporters from the White House, all right, and the U.S. media. An editorial in The Nation in June 17, 1996 asked, what if a popularly elected communist president in Russia had pursued Yeltsin's harsh policy of privatization, pushing his country into poverty, turning over most of his richest assets to a small segment of various communist officials, suppressing dissent element, using tanks to disband popularly elected parliament that oppose his policy, rewriting the constitution to give himself almost dictatorial power, and doing all the other things Yeltsin has done. Were the U.S. leaders enthusiastic to devote themselves to the re-election of this quote-unquote communist president and remain all but silence about this transgression? The question, and by the way, speaking, the U.S. press talk shit about Putin. They do. They hate him, not because Putin is not really is a communist or socialist or anything like that. No, he's none of that stuff. They just need Russia to be what they want every country to be, destroyed. They don't like strong countries, okay? And even though Russia is, as a leftist, I strongly disgusted because they support Israel, right? And a lot of Russian Jews go to Israel to occupy Palestinians. Disgusting. And Russia is a capitalist. I don't want Russia to be destroyed. I'm not going to be anti-Russia because white degenerates that live in a stolen land tell me to hate Russia. Russia is not a, they say it's a dictatorship, right? I don't know if Russia is a dictatorship or not. I don't care really. But I do know that Russia has a communist party. And I don't think they allow this communist party to do much in Russia. So that shows a level of dictatorship that I'm not impressed with. Okay? So let me just leave it at that. But let's keep going. The question is posed rhetorically. The Nation editorial presumed that the answer is no. In fact, I will respond, yes, of course. U.S. leaders will have no trouble supporting this quote-unquote communist president, for he will be communist in name only. And actually, he will be the voting agent of the capitalist restoration. One need only look at how successive administration in Washington have cultivated friendly relations with the present communist leader in China, overlooking and even explaining away the transgression. Okay? That's why you need to understand about this degeneracy. If you think Tom Cotton, if you think Mike Pompeo, if you think uh, Lindsey Graham, if you think John McCain, if you think that any of these degenerate, 100 degenerate senators, these white fascists, all right, or the hundreds Congress people, they care about democracy anywhere on planet Earth. They care about human freedom. I don't know what Kool-Aid you're drinking. I don't know what drugs you're using, but you should know that these people don't give a fuck. What they do give a fuck about is, can US exploit that land, steal the resources, keep people in check, then, right? That's all they care about. That's the whole government for you. That's what they do. Alright? That's all they care about. They do not care about fact. It doesn't even matter if they quote unquote communists. Alright? They don't care. As long as that communist is not actually communist. Alright? Right? If you say I'm communist, but hey, everything else is not communist, they're okay with that. Okay? The only time they will start saying these other things is when this communism actually taking place. Alright? So let's say you Saudi Arabia, right? And you are a disgusting degenerate that have no rights for anybody. It's one family, the Saud family that control the whole country, oppress the whole people, right? You are United Snakes, the land of the free, the home of the brave, as Gene Grocery Bag tell us, right? Best friend. Why? Because hey, United States, oil here, take it all. No problem. Just give us a little bit so we can have this fancy palace that we have here, right? That's totally fine. You are slaughtering people, decapitating people. People has zero freedom. That's totally cool and gone dandy. Alright? Now, you Iran, right? You said, no, you cannot take our oil however you see fit. You had to pay for it. Oh no, you are your theocracy. You are not giving women's freedom. You are these other things. Alright? That's United States for you. That's United States for you. Get real. But let's finish up. As China leaders open their country to private investment and growing economic inequalities, they offer up a dispossessed labor force ready to work double-digit hours for subsistence pay at enormous profit for the multinational U.S. political economic leaders know what they are doing. Even if some editorial writers in this country do not, their eye is on the money, not the color of the vessel it comes in. Since the overthrow of communist free market right-wing forces in various Eastern European countries enjoy significant financial and organizational assistance from U.S. finance agencies such as the National Endowment for Democracy, the AFL-CIO Free Market Union Institute, a group intimately linked to the CIA, and the Free Congress Foundation, and an organization with an anti-communist and conservative religious ideology. Communists and other Marxists endure political repression through Eastern Europe and East Germany. The Party of Democratic Socialism had his property and offices paid for by the party members, seized in the attempt to bankrupt it. In Latvia, the communist activist Alfred Roque, who protested the inequalities of free market quote unquote reform, has been kept in prison for years without benefit or trial, and Lithuania communist leaders were tortured and then imprisoned by a long duration. Georgia anti-communist president Sia Gansukurdia, just so you know, these names are being butchered. I have no ability to know how to say them. Gansukurdia incarcerated opponents from some 70 political groups without granting them a trial. This was reported in San Francisco Chronicle in April 17, 1991. Estonia held quote unquote free election in which 42% of the population was prohibited from voting because of the Russia, Ukrainian, and Belarusian antecedents. Russian and other minorities were excluded from many jobs and faced discrimination in housing and in school. Latvia also disenfranchised Russians and other non-Latvian nationals, many of whom had lived in the country for almost a half century, some months for the flowering of democracy. Do you hear that? Now, in this country, people adore everybody except the Russian. But do you see how Russians are being treated in these Eastern European countries? You know who did that to them? United States. He created friction. Now, these are all the same people. All right? These are the same people. They may speak a slightly little languages, but they're the same bloodline. All right? These are the same people. Okay? And they do this because they want conflicts with these people. All right? That's why they want us to have this the blue and yellow flag. We gotta wave it everywhere, even though these are neo-Nazis, fascists. Right? And that's not right. That's all I can say about it. That's not right. That's not right. People should not be discriminated because they're Russian. People should not be abused because they're Russian. People should not be abused for who they are. All right? Get that from me, Monica, the villain, the brownie, Monica Augustine, David's wife. People should not be abused because their national origin, the racial composition, not the stuff. Okay? People should be respected by who they are and treated with respect and dignity. But for now, that's what we'll leave it for today. We'll pick up tomorrow, One Way Democracy. And I will go ahead and leave us with the song that we all like, right? No soy de aquí, ni soy de allá. And with Jorge Cafrune. And we'll pick up again tomorrow. It's time to get things started.
We're still working on a few kinks.
That's all right. I love a kink.
It's time to raise the curtain of the
The new Infiniti QX80 and QX60 Sport are dark chromed, stealthed out thieves.
El sol, Alicia y la paloma, el buen cigarro y las malas señoras, saltar paredes y abrir las ventanas, y cuando llora una mujer, me gusta el vino tanto como las flores y los conejos, pero no los tractores, y el pan casero y la voz de Dolores, y el mar mojándome los pies. No soy de aquí ni soy de allá, no tengo edad ni porvenir. porvenir y ser feliz es mi color de identidad. Me gusta estar tirado siempre en la arena, en mi matungo perseguir a Manuela, o todo el tiempo para ver las estrellas con la María en el trigal. No soy de aquí ni soy de allá, no tengo edad ni porvenir y ser feliz es mi color de identidad. Me gusta el sol, Alicia y las palomas, el buen cigarro y las malas señoras, saltar paredes y abrir las ventanas, y cuando llora una mujer.